Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the science behind a pretty big trend in sports right now: intravenous iron for female athletes. It promises a quick fix for fatigue, but here's the question: does it actually make you faster? Let's get into it. So many athletes hit that wall, right? They're battling this kind of fatigue that you just can't seem to train through. Well, we're going to explore a cause that often flies under the radar, hiding in plain sight on a standard blood test. Okay, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to unpack the specific iron problem a lot of athletes are dealing with. Then, we'll stack up oral supplements against IV iron. After that, we'll dive deep into a major clinical trial, the IRONWOMAN Trial, to see what the science really says about performance, fatigue, and what it all means for you. All right, first up, we've got to understand the specific issue here, especially for female athletes. See, it's a condition that can seriously mess with your performance long before it ever shows up as full-blown anemia. And this right here is the key. You can be iron deficient without being anemic. This condition, called IDNA, basically means your body's iron reserves are running on fumes, even if your main oxygen carrying capacity, your hemoglobin, looks perfectly fine for now. This analogy just hits the nail on the head. Without enough iron to build that fleet of oxygen delivery trucks, your muscles just can't produce energy the way they're supposed to. And that can lead directly to that frustrating, persistent fatigue and a drop in performance. So, if that's the problem, what about the solutions? For literally decades, the go-to fix has been simple iron pills. But they've got some major drawbacks, which is why a lot of athletes are now looking for a much, much faster alternative. And when you put them side by side, the contrast is pretty stark. Oral iron is absorbed slowly, and it can cause all sorts of stomach problems. That's a huge deal for any athlete trying to train consistently. IV iron, on the other hand, just bypasses the gut entirely and delivers that iron straight into your bloodstream, ready for immediate use. This quote from the IRONWOMAN Trial really frames it perfectly. It paints IV iron not just as a medical treatment, but as this modern, almost trendy intervention in sports. And that really sets the stage for our deep dive into the actual evidence. So, does this fancy, high-tech solution actually work where it counts, on the track or on the road? To find out, we're going to look at a super high-quality study that was designed to answer that exact question. Now, this is a big deal. Double-blind means that neither the athletes nor the researchers knew who was getting the real iron and who was getting the fake stuff until the whole study was over. That kind of rigorous design is absolutely crucial for building evidence you can actually trust. And wow, the first major finding was just dramatic. Look at this. Only 4 days after the infusion, the iron group's ferritin levels, that key marker for iron stores, shot through the roof. Meanwhile, the placebo group? Basically no change at all. So the data is crystal clear on this point. IV iron does exactly what it says on the tin. It boosts iron levels, and it does it fast. But that's just step one, right? The real question for any athlete is, what happens next? Okay, and this brings us to what I think is the most fascinating part of this whole story. Did that huge surge in iron actually make the athletes perform better? Well, the answer is a little more complicated than you might think. This is it, the million-dollar question. Did all that iron translate to speed? Let's look at what the performance test showed. And here is the first big surprise. Despite having fully restocked iron stores, the athlete's top-end engine size, their VO2 max, it didn't get any bigger. Nothing. No change. But, and this is a huge but, the story totally changes here. While their max capacity didn't go up, their efficiency did. They became more economical runners. Basically, they could hold a faster pace for the same amount of effort, which, as you know, is a massive advantage in any endurance sport. So this is the crucial piece of the puzzle. While the lab equipment might not have screamed faster athlete in a max effort test, the athletes themselves felt way better. They reported feeling significantly less tired in their day-to-day training and life. So, after all that, what are we supposed to take away from this? Let's boil all these findings down into some clear, actionable conclusions. Okay, so here's the bottom line. IV iron is not some magic bullet that's going to skyrocket your VO2 max overnight. But what it does do, and does incredibly well, is fight that deep, nagging fatigue that comes with iron deficiency. And that could be the real key here, allowing for better quality training and, more importantly, more consistent training over the long haul.
And this leaves us with a final, really thought-provoking question about where these powerful interventions fit into sports. It really highlights that fine, blurry line between therapy and straight-up enhancement. Thanks for digging into this one with me today.